Hey, how are you guys doing? Welcome to my brand new YouTube channel, where I'll be regularly sharing true scary stories that will make you question the existence of the supernatural. Please like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications so you get to see whenever I upload my next series of scary stories. Now, before I start with the video, I'd like to let you guys know that in my next video, I'll feature the best stories from the ones that you guys send me. So if you have any spine-chilling real stories that you want to share with the listeners, send it over to horroxperiencemedia@gmail.com. I'll also have the Gmail down below in the description so you will be able to send your story after you are finished listening. Secondly, and most importantly, I want to thank all the people from Reddit who let me use their stories for my channel. I will have the link of their posts in the description below, so if you like the story, please go ahead and upvote their posts, and send karma, through the link in the description below. Excuse my lack of technical terminology for Reddit, I'm new to it. With that being said, let's start with the series. The Girl in the Yellow Dress, by Excellent Reach 6641. My sister and I have previously seen a young child in a yellow dress at my father's house. There is a hallway leading to the back door, and we were in the house. When I saw a girl leaving the house wearing a yellow dress, I assumed it was my niece, who just walked out the door. My sister then questioned me, and after I stated that I believed it to be my niece, my sister said, "No. She is here right now." The moment my niece, who was wearing a pink tracksuit, emerged from behind my sister, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. My sister was also perplexed, and we both agreed that the girl was wearing a yellow dress. Because it happened so quickly, we were unable to get a good look at the face, but we did hear the back door open and close in the foyer. We immediately ran out the back door to look for the girl after realizing it was not my niece, and nobody was there. It had to be a ghost, we concluded. We then heard the bathtub water running in a guest bathroom even though no one was using the tub when we went back inside. When I went in to look, I discovered that the water was flowing down the drain at full blast and was extremely hot. We were all convinced that the girl in the yellow dress had turned it on before I turned it off. We never saw her again after that day, but occasionally in the middle of the night, we would hear footsteps and get the unsettling impression that someone was inside. Never could we figure out who. Pull Shayla, by Outside Still 7118. Me and my buddies from Salt Lake City went to a forest and just did shrooms. At first it was a normal fun trip and we were all having fun when out of nowhere we decided to check out the forest. We didn't think too much of it except for it being a little scary. We went a couple miles from camp and kept feeling things like someone was watching us. We got so many urges to go back, but we always kept going for some reason. We finally reached a fork in the road and decided to go on the left path. As we were walking up the trail, we kept seeing signs. These signs said, "Keep out, stay away, enter at own risk." We didn't think too much of these signs and decided to keep walking up the trail, but one sign finally stood out to us. It said, "Pull Shayla." We were so confused by the message on it, we decided to pull it off because we didn't think it would do anything. After we pulled it, we started walking back to our camp. At first nothing was strange, we didn't think we were being watched anymore. When we got past the fork in the road, that's when everything started getting terrifying. We were just walking on the road when out of nowhere the bushes rattled loudly. As soon as we heard that, we all booked it more and more down the trail till our legs gave out. When we finally stopped, we talked about the sign and maybe that caused the bushes. We thought maybe something was in the forest with us and we angered it after pulling the sign. The closer we got to camp, the creepier it got. We were hearing so many noises in the bushes and something was watching us, we could all feel it. Something powerful, not from Earth. Something bigger was out there watching us. We finally got back to our camp and all got around the fire and lit it back up. When we did, we felt safe, but one of us always wanted to go back out there. It was like a loop. Someone would always try to convince one of us to go back out. It's like we couldn't control it, we just had an urge. After a few hours, I went back out. I was so curious what this thing was, what it was. As I went back out and friends no noticing, I got about 5 minutes away when I heard something breathe in the trees next to me. As I looked over, I saw a bright green head staring at me. I have never ran so fucking fast in my life back to camp. As soon as I got there, I told all my friends that we needed to hide and something was out there. They believed the fire was the safe spot, that the thing couldn't get us while we were around it. So for the rest of the night we stayed at that fire. Before we move on to the next story, I just wanted to give a friendly reminder that these stories are dark and not for the faint of heart. These stories stimulate your imagination for the worse. A mind haunted by the voices coming from seemingly nowhere. So, if you are feeling uncomfortable, you better grab a friend and listen together. Because it's only going to get even darker from here onwards. I am looking for help to put my brother's spirit to rest. By DefNotBenShapiro. Growing up, my brother and I were inseparable. We did almost everything together. We played video games, watched cartoons, ate food, did homework, and did pretty much everything else together. One thing my brother liked a lot was the occult and the mysterious. We read stories about Bigfoot, aliens, and the Loch Ness Monster, but what he liked the most was stories of the undead. Zombies, poltergeists, specters, you name it, he liked it. I never got into it as much as him, and was a bit scared by it, but I still liked being with him, so I went along with it. As we got older, we went to college together, though we did take different classes. There was no degree in the occult, so my brother decided that he wanted to be a horror author. He also took a few minors, but he never told me what they were. By the way, to understand something later, let me clarify something. While we shared almost everything, we only shared almost everything. One thing that my brother kept secret was a journal with a lock on it. Anyways, as we went through college, I began to notice that he was writing in his journal more and more, until he had to get several journals. Once, he left his journal open, and I peeked at it and saw something about restless spirits. However, as a nice brother, I told him that his journal was open instead of reading it. If only I had began to read it earlier. Fast forward to about 2 years ago, about 25 years after college, we had been separated because we had different jobs, though we always stayed somewhat in contact. We both ended up doing well, so we could be independent, neither of us married. I had a much more successful job than he did. I won't say what my job was, since the story isn't about me, but he was happy writing horror stories, and that's all that mattered. However, one day, the worst thing possible happened. As he went out for an evening walk, he got hit by a drunk driver. I tried to leave work as early as possible to see him in the hospital, but I was too late. I went to his funeral alone, since my parents had passed away by then. He left what little he had to me. After that, I began to see him. I first saw him when I drove by the cemetery he was buried in, near a tombstone. I rushed out of my car, but he was gone after I shut the door. I told one of my few friends, but he said that I was probably dealing with trauma and should see a therapist. I decided to go to a therapist for a while, but the guy there seemed to only care about my money because he always just tried to write me off as crazy and told me to take pills. I tried the pills once, but I just felt different. Besides, if it was just a hallucination due to trauma, why did I still see him a while after he died? In fact, I began not only to see him, but to feel him. At first, I was happy that my brother was back, but I began to get an uneasy feeling as time went on. It was as if he was a restless spirit. I struggled to sleep, saw him constantly, and sometimes would be paralyzed with something when I saw him. My boss began to notice this about 3 months after my brother first started showing up, but due to my being a good employee, he decided to try letting me have a break due to stress. When that did nothing, my brother wasn't just going to vanish, obviously, he decided to ask me about my behavior. I told him, and he told me that I seriously needed to see a therapist. I already knew that therapists just wanted my money, and I was getting close to retirement, so I just decided to retire so that my boss wouldn't feel the need to deal with me. I have felt nothing positive when my brother comes around. He always stares at me when I try to sleep, and I always felt like there was something I needed to do. One day, however, he put an idea into my brain. Read the journals. I found them, but I couldn't find a key. A hammer worked just as well, though I did sprain my wrist for a few days. I poured my efforts into reading his journals, but it just seemed to be horror stories. No, there must be something there. A puzzle? It must be something to set his spirit to rest. I haven't found the answer yet, but I will spend the rest of my retirement looking for an answer if I need to, which is a part of why I wrote this all down. Can anyone, who is serious, tell me anything they know about putting spirits to rest? I might send a copy of his journals to anyone who asks, but they might be too large to send digitally, and I only have one physical copy of each journal. If you want other details, I can tell you in the comments. Many thanks to anyone who helps me. Mass by Mateo Aguilar. The thick sound of the organs echoed throughout the church. Light of all different colors slipped through the windows, painting the shiny concrete floors. The preacher, a slightly overweight and short man, stood on a small podium, preaching to the crowd in the pews. If we do not accept that Jesus came down and died for our sins, we will be doomed to burn in the fires of hell. He paused. A woman shifted uncomfortably. He closed the small Bible in front of him. God will not allow traitors or liars through the gates of heaven, and if you want to meet our Savior, our Lord in heaven, you must accept him. Amen. He walked back to his chair in silence. It sparkled with ornaments, shiny gems, and beautiful strips of cloth. It stuck out like a sore thumb compared to the other parts of the church. The wood on the altar was starting to chip and the tabernacle was beginning to look a little rusty. Overall, the church wasn't in the best condition, but nobody really noticed, or cared for that matter. It wasn't their problem. As long as they gave their small portion to the collection, Father was happy. Time dragged on and soon, they said their closing prayers and left. Silence filled the once full church. It was almost mid-noon, and Father had things to do. He quietly shuffled over to his small room, took off all of the little ornaments and robes he had on, and headed off to his small house out behind the church. But before he could get to the door, he felt a small drop of liquid hit his neck. He stopped and wiped his neck. His hands came back stained with black. "What?" he muttered, confused. He looked up, trying to find the source. His eyes met one of the angel statues. Small drips of black bile ran down the face of the angel. Terrified, he ran towards the door, but it was locked. He pounded on the glass door and screamed, but it didn't budge. Exhausted and scared, he sat down against the door, hoping someone would come to help him. "Hello, Father." Father whirled around. A man in black stood at the front of the church, staring at the tabernacle. "Wouldn't want to be trapped in here, I'd imagine. This place looks like a dump." The man turned around, a small smirk on his face. His eyes were the brightest shade of red. His hair was neatly done and his face, without marks. "Who are you?" Father said with a trembling voice. I am the one you speak out against every Sunday. The one who is, in your mind, evil. I am evil. Father stared blankly at him. The devil? That assumption would be correct, yes. Why are you here, in the house of the Lord? What do you want from me? Ah, straight to the meat I see. He walked over to Father's chair and admired all of the shiny ornaments. He pointed to the chair. Is this yours? He ran his hand over the smooth cloth. Yes, why do you ask? Why is it decorated with so much? It is, after all, just a chair. Father didn't respond. Once again, I am asking, why is it decorated so well, for it is just a chair? I just wanted it to look nice. Is that too much to ask? Okay, that is understandable. He once again walked to the tabernacle. But may I ask why it is that your tabernacle is in the condition it is in? He flaked off a small chip of rust, showing the silver beneath. Father chuckled. You're here to test me, aren't you? Test you of what? The devil replied. He sat down in Father's chair. Of my faith. You believe so? The devil replied with a chuckle. Why won't you just let me go? I've done nothing wrong. I will let you go after you answer me this. The devil stood up and began pacing around the altar. The people who come here, they are not very wealthy. You, in fact, know this to be true, right? Father nodded his head. Why then, do you ask for money during services? So we can help the poor or use it to renovate the church. He muttered quietly. And you do that? Father stared off blankly. And you do that, right? Yes. Are you honest about this? The devil inquired. Yes, of course. Father shifted uncomfortably. Do you enjoy that chair you have? Does it bring you joy? Yes, yes it does. Have you noticed how the chair appears compared to everything else? Father reluctantly pulled his head up. He was right. The chair shined next to the drabby church. The yellow LED lights on the roof glowed that horrible yellow color, while the pews slowly rotted away and the statues on the walls began to crumble. Why are you doing this to me? Small tears began to roll down his face. To show you that you were wrong, he said with a slight smile. He sat down in front of the exhausted preacher. Do you think Jesus would want you to spend the money that you collect from the services on chairs, or cars, or houses? The preacher shook his head. Then why do you choose to do so? I don't know, he muttered. His head hung low. I'm only human. Okay then. The devil stood up, brushed off his pants, and turned to walk away. This, my friend, was merely a warning. If you fail to change your greedy ways, worse things will come. He walked out the door, and with a slam, he was gone. The preacher sat on the floor, confused and tired. He lay there, and fell asleep, hoping to forget it all by morning. Many weeks went by, and the preacher said his homilies and collected the money at the end of Mass. Soon, he forgot about the devil's warnings, shaking it off as a bad dream. He continued spending the money on lavish, unnecessary things and lying about it. Your money goes to a good cause was what he said before every collection. As time went on, the preacher became more and more frivolous with his money. He bought a nicer car, nicer clothes, and a new house. He started gambling on Saturday nights. All the while, the church kept going into decline. The tabernacle was now more rust and gold, and the altar was barely standing. Some of the churchgoers had come in and put in wooden poles to keep it standing. Yet, they still donated every Sunday, always assuring that it would get better and that the church just needed a little more money. It was Sunday afternoon. The church was empty once more. Quiet and peaceful. The preacher sat in a small office, counting and filing the money. $400 today, almost twice as much as usual. but it wasn't a shocker to him. He told them he was going to see a cancer patient this weekend, a child at that, but he needed some money to get there. Without hesitation, almost every person handed over some cash. He stood up and stretched. He was going somewhere this weekend, but it sure as heck wasn't any hospital. The casinos again. He needed some extra cash to gamble with. He walked out of the office and into the church. He had to prepare for an evening mass. He grabbed the robes for the season, a beautiful color of red with a golden pattern sewn into the fabric. It cost quite a bit, but it wasn't his money, so who was he to complain? He slipped the thick robe on and made his way into the nave. "Very beautiful robe you have there," came a familiar voice. His heart dropped like a lead weight. He stopped. He wasn't in his eyesight yet. Maybe he could run. He slowly turned and ran out the door into the community church building. "I'm everywhere, Father. You can't just run away." The devil stood in the middle of the room. He was holding a small crucifix from the wall, examining it. "So this," he held it up, "is what you all worship?" A dead man hanging from the cross. The priest became red in the face. "That's Jesus Christ, our Savior. Unlike you, you traitor to God." The devil chuckled and set down the crucifix. "Do you remember what I told you the last time we met?" The priest's head sank. "Yes," he replied softly. "Did you do as I commanded?" Silence. The priest kept his head down, wishing so badly to be anywhere but here. "No," he muttered. "The church is in perfect condition. Why must I spend money to renovate it when it looks perfectly fine?" he stated, trying desperately to get out of the situation. "Perfect condition? What, Father, do you consider perfect condition? Is it the state where you have churchgoers who are having to fix it for you? What do you mean?" Father questioned. "Your people have put in poles on the altar to keep it upright. They try to keep the church as clean and pretty as they can, while you gamble their money away." He walked over to him. "Do you know who asked me to come up here and correct you?" The preacher shook his head. "It was God who asked me to do it." The preacher looked in shock. "I only agreed because I knew that you humans couldn't stop yourselves. You couldn't resist the temptations. The want and need for power and money. You won't even think twice about throwing away those who support you and care for you, all your morals, once money is in the equation." He patted the preacher's shoulders. "But now, you have failed, and it's my turn to have some fun." The preacher stumbled back. No, wait, I'm a holy man, you can't do this, I'm a messenger of God." The devil laughed. It boomed in the small room. "You think God is on your side?" He chuckled. "Did you not hear what I just said? You have failed him. He gave you your chance, but you couldn't change. Please, please God help me," the preacher screamed. He fell to his knees and begged. "Now, Father, it's my turn to have some fun." The angels on the walls slowly turned towards him, the heavy scraping on stone on the wood. They began to cry again, but this time, it wasn't the black bile. It was blood. "See you in hell, Father." Since you've made it this far into the video, I'd like to make a request. If you have enjoyed yourself so far, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed to my channel for more upcoming horror stories. Press the bell icon to get instant notifications whenever I upload the next series of true, scary stories. If you like the content, please help push this channel into the algorithm. Now, with that being said, let's continue on with the stories. Weird Things Starting to Happen in Our Apartment by James. My partner and I moved to Seattle back in January to the Chinatown International District and have loved it. But lately we've been experiencing some weird things in the apartment. The first weird thing happened about a month ago. My partner was in the only closet in our studio apartment when he jumped out startled, eyes as big as dinner plates. Without taking his eyes off the closet, he asked me if I had said help me. I told him I hadn't, as I was just sitting at the computer playing a game. We shook it off and assumed it was nothing. Then a week ago I was cooking something for dinner while my partner was showering. Completely distracted, I felt a hand on my ass, and so I jokingly batted it away, asking him not to bother me while I was cutting up veg. No answer, so I turned around and he was still in the shower. I went and asked him if he was fucking with me, to which he said he didn't. Fast forward to last night and to just now. Last night I was laying in bed having a hard time go to sleep, and out of the corner of my eye I see a head and shoulders raise up from the foot of the bed. I do a quick double take, but my second look the figure is gone. And literally bust 10 minutes ago I am back in bed and I see the shadow of a man walk by the corner of my bed into the kitchen. I am freaked out. All doors and windows are locked. I check the 2 rooms in our studio, bathroom and laundry room. And there's nothing. Not a single sign of someone else in our apartment. I feel very on edge. I need to figure this out before he finds me. By ellysisle. It all started when I woke up, confused, in a hospital room. I turned to meet the gaze of a dark-haired man with stubble on his chin and cheeks. He looked as if he hadn't slept in days. My medical team told me I had been in an accident and sustained a traumatic brain injury. I'd had several surgeries to fix the damage and had been in a coma for weeks. I might never recover my memory. They said my name was Grace and I was married. They introduced the man across the room as my husband, Adrian. I tried to force a smile. Adrian told me that he was a dermatologist a couple towns over and he had met me hiking. He explained that I was a student taking classes at the local university. I got a call from the hospital. You were 2 towns over, intoxicated, and had been hit by a car crossing the street. It was a hit and run. Fortunately, you had your wallet on you, and they were able to get a hold of me because your phone had me listed as your emergency contact. The doctor discharged me and I was entered into outpatient therapy services. Adrian drove me to our home, a large home in the suburbs. I didn't recognize it. Anytime I questioned the world around me, Adrian said, they had to remove part of your brain to help with swelling. You'll understand if some of your own memories are unreliable. I became the most unreliable source on myself. When Adrian took me around family and friends, they gave me alarmed glances, as if they didn't recognize me. I can't believe they changed her that much. One of his friends whispered after I told them all I was going to bed. I stood in the hall outside the room and eavesdropped, wanting to know what they said behind my back. Her face was unrecognizable after the accident, Adrian told them. They had to use skin grafts and they did their best to get her as close to her original appearance as they could. He shrugged. They said some features might be permanently altered. The doctor hadn't told me that. Maybe he was afraid of upsetting me. I overheard my father say, "She's just not the same girl anymore." I looked at old photos of me, searching for the similarities and differences everyone pointed out. The woman in the photos had the same dark hair as me. Her nose was the same shape. Her eyes were almond, like mine, and dark brown as mine were. But the shape of her face was longer and thinner than mine. Mine was rounder and heart-shaped, and I had softer cheeks and wider lips. We could have been 2 different women, but Adrian said it was just the surgeries. I put the box away and stared at the mirror for a while after that, wondering why I felt so off. I lost my spot at the university because I couldn't focus. I spent my days online shopping, trying to fill an empty void with things I didn't need. Since Adrian made enough to keep us afloat, I didn't need to work. Months went by, and I didn't retrieve any memories. Therapies ended. Life went on. I felt disconnected from Adrian, and he understood. We were strangers in our home. I became angry. I wanted myself back so desperately. I wanted to understand who I was. I felt silenced and lonely. I visited the town where I'd been hit. I wanted to walk the street again and try to remember anything I could. That's when I saw it, a poster on a bulletin board in a convenience store, with a face that was undeniably mine. "Have you seen this woman?" The poster read, and the paragraph beneath it wrote that the girl's name was Katrina. But the poster had been torn, and the contact information was missing. I went home, angrily wanting answers, but I didn't have any. I tried searching the girl online, but all of her social media profiles were private. I couldn't even see her friends. It left me feeling like I'd met a dead end, and I felt stupid for even thinking that girl could have been the answer to my questions. When I got home, I stared at the face in the mirror and asked myself, "Who are you?" When Adrian left for work the next morning, I knew it was time to explore the parts of our home I hadn't looked into yet. It was up to me to piece back together my reality. I looked everywhere, unsure what it was I was looking for, and feeling ridiculous in the process. Then I found a key hidden in a shoebox under the bed. It wore a tag that read the name of a storage center and had a unit number written on the tag. Could this be the answer to my questions? I was going to find out. I went to the storage unit, which sat in the middle of a desolate rundown town in a sketchy neighborhood. I entered the center and walked until I found the small, walk-in closet-sized unit. I breathed in sharply as I stuck the key into the lock and pulled the door open. This was it. I nearly melted to my knees. It was like something out of a horror film. An axe sat surrounded by rope, chains, and cuffs. I saw photos taped to the wall with duct tape, photos of Katrina and photos of Grace. A large suitcase sat with a padlock on the zipper. Multiple broken cell phones lay in a pile. A safe was nestled between the disorganized mess and the wall. The unit smelled horrible. There were trash bags and towels covered in what I could only assume to be blood. I was terrified. I left. What was going on? Who was the man I was living with? Who was Katrina? Who was Grace? And more importantly, who was I? I came home and ran upstairs to restore the key, and I knew I had to leave. I packed up some clothes, my computer, and the few credit cards I had access to. I checked into a local motel. I had to hide. It's been a few hours since then. I left the motel and I can't say where I am. It occurred to me that Adrian could be watching the credit card statements, and I don't want to take that risk. I don't know what to do. I feel stuck. I have nowhere to go. I'm so scared right now. I have gotten a few texts from Adrian, wanting to know where I am, but I can't answer them. I don't want him to find me. What happened to Grace? What happened to Katrina? Am I crazy? Someone please help me figure this out before Adrian finds where I am. I don't want to play bingo anymore. By Grandaddyspookybones. Hi all. I'm a staff member at a retirement service. Posting this puts me at risk of termination, in more than one way. But I've worked there for years. Things changed quickly, but I found this letter from a sweet old man. I hope to help him by publishing it. Without wasting more of your time with me, here is Mr. Green's letter. After I left the military, I put in 40 years of labor into the railroad company. I always paid my union dues, worked my hardest, and spent as much time with my family as I could. That part has me a little bitter. My family threw me in here rather than caring for me, but I wouldn't want to be a bother anyway. I finally retired and was set to buy an RV to tour the national parks and visit the grandchildren that were in various parts of the country. The day before I was to deliver my deposit, I took a nasty fall off a ladder helping my elderly neighbor with her roof. I wasn't fully disabled, but it was clear I'd never be at full capability again. Rather than hiring contractors to make my house handicapped friendly, I let my kids talk me into checking out retirement homes. They brought pamphlets and showed me video ads. Most of them just looked like a waiting room to die in, but I found a suitable one called Better Days, Luxury Retirement Village. Each resident got their own condo. There was a pool or recreational center and a golf center for the yuppies. All of the staff and residents seemed friendly, and there was a recent opening. I enjoyed the first couple weeks. I cruised around the village in my own golf cart, attended some potlucks, watched the churches come preach/sing, and spent most of my time fishing with other old men. But the dynamic vibe changed closer to the end of the month. People started looking down and refusing to make eye contact. I was laying on my couch watching an MLB game when I got the call for a mandatory bingo night. An employee would come round us all up for the outside group hosting the event. I splashed on some cologne, threw on a polo shirt, and hopped on the limo-style golf cart and was disappointed nobody wanted to talk. Perhaps bingo night would change the dreary atmosphere. As we sat in our chairs, a man came up front in a red hooded robe. Funny, I thought. This isn't October, no Halloween yet. There were multiple men in pure white scrubs. Hello, you old decrepit wastes of space. It's everyone's favorite night of the month. Bingo, he spelled out. Bingo, he yelled as his cronies cheered and clapped. Since we have a new old man, let me go over the rules. I'm the director of New Life Solutions. We visit all retirement homes in this area and help make space. We're gonna do 3 rounds of bingo. Do not cheat, there will be grave consequences if so. Don't tell your families. We have an Orwell camera-style system in your rooms, and we also scan your mail. Plus they don't want you anyways, that's why you're here, he giggled with his henchmen. I wanted to laugh. That was until I noticed the solemn look on everyone's face. I went to stand up but felt 2 cold heavy hands on my shoulders. Sir. I know this is your first time, so let's let you sit out round 1 so you can catch up to speed. Round 1. Be 7-inch, he hissed. People began dotting their boards. The staff snaked up and down the aisles, palming their hands together, eyes squinting, chuckling. After 10 minutes, a lady shouted bingo extremely happy. That was the first smile I had seen in days. The staff verified her card. Very well, Mrs. Sigmund. You're exempt from the remaining rounds. Kindly step outside and one of your caretakers will take you back to your condo. Mr. Green, is it? He asked me. I think you understand the game well enough now. Please sit so we can begin round 2-inch. I sat down and we started the second game. My card quickly filled, but never a row worth. All of a sudden, there was a gasp. Right here, boss. We got a bingo. Mr. Filch hung his head low. He didn't look happy like Mrs. Sigmund did. Mr. Filch, come on up and collect your prize. Old man Filch went up and stood in front of the hall. The director put his hand in the bag of prizes and pulled out a cane. Oh, not as fun as last month's, the director said. Oh well, we will make do. He proceeded to whack Mr. Filch on the back of the neck with the cane. Filch screamed. Instinctively, I tried to stand up. A staff member without hesitation ran a pair of scissors into my legs, sitting me back down. Mr. Green, please refrain from interfering with the game. Consider this your only warning. Someone fetch him a towel so he doesn't stain the floor. My leg throbbed as I wrapped the towel around and applied pressure. He began to beat Filch savagely, bruising him and busting an eye socket. Eventually, the old man collapsed on the floor, convulsing. Well, Mr. Filch is too damaged to play round 3. Have a nurse escort him to the medical wing and tell his family he fell down the stairs on visitation day. All right. Time for my personal favorite round. Round 3. The execution round, he shouted as he drug his finger across his throat. With my leg in pain and my jeans sticking to me leg, I sat there breathing heavily with cold sweat freezing my body. B9, he called. Shit. N47. Damn, there's another. 2 for 2, in the same row. N51. What's with this guy? He's coming for me. G60. There's another on a separate row. While the game likely only took 10 minutes, it felt like hours. I was woozy from the blood loss. The only thing stopping me from passing out was the very real fear of dying. I prayed my numbers wouldn't be called. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I kept getting hit. I only had one left in a row outside of the scattered dots on my bird. I-27. I felt the ball roll down the spiral loop and heard the director's lips part as his rolled out. I-20. My stomach was coming out of my throat and I could see a staff member head towards me to run his fingertip on the back of my neck. See, oh God. This is it. I'm dead. Threaks, my heart stopped a second. I let out the gasp of air that I thought would be my last. I was safe, for now. Bingo shouted from a staff member. The old man next to me slammed his head on the desk and cried. The staff snatched him despite his protests and resistance. They sat him in a chair in front of us all and restrained him. The director came behind him and placed both hands on his shoulders. You know the rules, everyone. Let's watch as we let Mr. Lewis finally retires. The director pulled out a grocery bag and wrapped it around his head. The poor man winced and jerked like a fish out of water as he suffocated. He nearly broke the chair in his attempt to escape. When the bag was removed, he was dead. Head hung low. They cut his restraints and he just plopped on the floor. Very well, you vermin, coughed the director. We're off to New Beginnings nursing home down the road. We will be back next month. Please return home. We all went back to our condos. I wasn't able to sleep a wink. Please keep your loved ones out of these homes. I'm not sure which ones play this game. I don't know how else to help, or escape, or fight back. I managed to write this out and hope that the right person picks it up to type out my message. Perhaps a helpful staff member here. That was all for today. Glad you guys listened till the end. Don't forget to like the video and share with your friends. Also send in your own scary stories at horroxperiencemedia@gmail.com so your work can get featured in my videos. You can find the link in the description. Subscribe for more similar stories and see you guys in the next video.